At the top, we're starting with, right?
No, we're actually going to be picking up from Yad Aleph from Mid Bays, a couple of like 7, 8 lines in the bottom.
Okay.
Yud Mid Bays, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Actually, Ace Vey. The first one on the line, it's, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 lines in the bottom. Ace Vey. But I'm going to, before we get there, I'll set the backdrop for this question in the Gemara, and then we'll pick up from there. Also, today's daf is being learned as a schos refuah shlema for Esther bas Chaya Pesel, Dov Mordechai ben Bela Sheva, Elisheva Shena bas Adina Edel, Eva Shlomis bas Ilana Esther, Hadara Sarah bas Pesi Leah, Liora bas Sarah, as well as the schos for Yeshua B'Karuk for Shulam Eschana Leah bas Rachel, and Shalom ben Malka Roiza as well, also as an Elin Neshama for Yitzchak Moshe ben Yehuda Yeshua HaKoyen, Mitzvah Victor ben Aaron Allah. Okay, so we're picking up in the middle of a Gemara where we were discussing a machlekes between Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish. The machlekes between Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish is the following case. We're just going to discuss the basic and keep it simple. You have a bunch of brothers and a bunch of wives. Okay, so you have Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, however many brothers, doesn't really matter. Shimon, the one who's going to die. Okay, Shimon has a bunch of wives. We call them tsaros, right? Every one of these ladies is a tsar. This is Yevamos Aleph, 101. Yevamos 101. We have Shimon's got a bunch of wives. Rachel, Sarah, Dina, Chaya, Bracha, Pesi, whatever. They're all a bunch of his wives. Now, what happens if Shimon dies? All of these ladies fall to all the brothers in Yibam. Now, we'll see later on in the Masechta, but we know this already from the Hakdama. We learned the Masechta. The halacha generally is that one of the brothers has to do Yibam with one of the wives, or Chalitza with one of the wives, and then everyone is good. All of the other tsaros are now no longer in the parsha of Yibam at all. All of the other brothers are no longer in the parsha of Yibam. Once one of the brothers took care of one of the wives, either through Yibam or Chalitza, the whole story is over. And that is how we've been working with them. And the truth is that hasn't changed. Second,
Amen.
So, let me ask you the following question. Let's say Shimon dies, and guys, keep it down. Do me a favor, if you don't mind. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so Shimon dies, and let's say Reuven went ahead and did chalitza with Rachel. Okay, simple case. One of the wives and one of the brothers, Reuven with Rachel, and he did chalitza. So it's over. There's nothing to talk about. Chalitza's over. Now, at this point in time, this Chalitza, Rachel, what is her relationship with Reuven? She's a Chalutza. He's a Choletz. Let's leave that on the side for a moment.
What do you mean?
She did Chalitza.
Yeah.
He did Chalitza. They did Chalitza together. So the relationship's over.
There's no Zerka bar.
Correct. Now, let's say the following question happens. What if Levi, another brother, he didn't do any yibum, didn't do any chalitza, nothing. Reuven took care of his responsibilities, so Levi's good to go, right? Levi has no responsibilities at this point because Reuven took care of the chalitza. What if this woman, Rachel, says, I really wish that Levi would have done yibum with me. I would have loved to be his wife. In fact, Levi says, I would have loved to be married to Rachel. I fell in love with her. She's a great girl. And Levi decides, I want to go marry her. I want to go make a kedushin with her.
I think, isn't it, you're allowed to marry your brother's wife?
No, that's it. It's right?
Even after he dies?
Oh, so this is the question. Especially after he dies. What do you mean? Some difference? There's no difference.
Yibam allows it.
Yeah, that's it. Right? So think of it like this. I'll draw it up on the board. Yeah.
Aaron, get learning a little bit. It's good for your neshama.
But aren't you not supposed to eat out when you're not a Yibam?
Okay, so he did a mistake. In other words, you're saying.
You have Reuben, Shimon, and Levi.
He's not allowed to marry her.
Let's think.
3 brothers.
Shimon is married to Rachel and Dina. Okay. Shimon dies.
Never.
Right now, Levi or Reuben can do Yibam or Chalitza to any one of these ladies. Reuven jumps the gun, does Chalitza with Rachel. Pause. Just take a breath. Reuven did Chalitza with Rachel. Dina can go marry whoever she wants now. Levi has no responsibilities to Dina. Rachel and Reuven are not married because he did Chalitza. Rachel can go marry whoever she wants now. The parsha's over, right? What if Levi says, but I like Rachel. I want to marry her. Can he marry her? can Levi marry Dinah? Dinah and Rachel are both Shimon, Levi's brother's wife. The fact that Shimon's not around anymore doesn't matter, right? The bottom line is these two ladies are Shimon's.
You don't marry your sister-in-law ever.
So this is a machlok. Well, yes. The question is why. This is a machlok Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish says, Ruvain, when he did chalitza with Rachel, what did he accomplish? He accomplished that all of these other people over here are no longer responsible to do Yibam or chalitza. But it didn't remove the existent isser that exists by them. Adarabba, that's an Eshesach, and you don't have a mitzvah anymore. So an Eshesach shlo b'makam mitzvah is a chiv kares. It's one of the ervas. In fact, if Levi would try to now marry Rachel and he said harei mikudeshesli, we would say the kedusha doesn't take. That is an erva relationship. It's like trying to marry your mom. It doesn't take. So Rish Lakish holds that this relationship between Levi and these two ladies doesn't make a difference if it's Rachel or Dinah. Is kares. It's Eshesach. Yeah. Rabbi Yochanan, though, he says, not like that. Rabbi Yochanan says the following. He'll say that when Reuven did chalitza with Rachel, the Torah tells us that when Shimon dies, we want you to do Yibam, and if a person didn't do Yibam, then and he chooses to do chalitza with the pasuk, the lashon of the pasuk is Shelo Yivne Beis Achiv. He didn't build the house of his brother. The Gemara makes a drasha. What do you mean Yivne? Shelo Bana. It should have been he didn't build. Not that he didn't in the future build. He didn't in the past build. By doing chalitza, he in the past didn't build. So why is there a future language? Kivin Shelo Bana Shuv Lo Yivne. Meaning, we say that once Reuven does chalitza with Rachel, creates a new isser with Rachel. It removes the isser Eshes Ach with Rachel, and this is true for everybody. Everybody agrees that for Reuven and Rachel, once he does chalitza, that let's say Reuven decided after doing chalitza, he said, you know what, I want to marry her. This is only usher as a regular love. This is not a kares relationship. Everybody agrees to this. Everybody agrees that if Reuven has done chalitza and now he wants to marry her, as he changes his mind, he could have done yibam. So that's a special teres akasav. Kivin shleibana shuv lo yivna. Since he didn't do yibam the first time, he can't do it again. That's a new aveira. What we're saying is that she was allowed to be with him when Shimon died because of the mitzvah's yibam, and he did chalitza that sort of like locks in the heter mitzad the eshes ach of her. However, since he did chalitza, there's a new aveira that he has, that he's not allowed to marry her because of kivin shleibana shluvina. This is only allowed, not a kares. Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan, everybody agrees to this. This is not an argument. Everyone holds that if Reuven himself were to go to marry Rachel, the kedushin works.
Wow.
It's not allowed.
It's still not an erva. It's still an erva.
Yeah, but Yiba made the erva go away. Once, well, the falling the Yiba made the erva go away, right? Meaning when Shimon died, he could be with Rachel. So there was no erva then. By him doing the chalitza, he sort of locked in her status as not being erva to him. It's just the Torah says a person that you do chalitza with, you have a separate avera of you can't marry her. But if you marry her, it's only this lav, so the kedushin takes. Yeah, let's do it slowly. So Shimon dies. Rachel, who's normally an Eshesach, now all of a sudden is mutter because of Yibam. Reuven could have done Yibam. He chose to do chalitza, but never did Rachel become usher to him as an Eshesach shelo b'makam mitzvah. Because when he did chalitza, she was
Not
still
good.
so it took care of the Eshesach problem for Reuven. Did it take care of it for Levi? That's their machlekes. Reish Lakish says, yeah, Reuven and Rachel, this works. That's only a lav, meaning you shouldn't do it, but if you did it, it takes. But if Levi tried to marry Rachel, or for that matter, Dinah, or for that matter, if Reuven tried to marry Dinah, this woman, this woman is still an Eshes Ashla b'Malka Mitzvah. Kares to Levi and to Reuven. This woman is a kares to Levi. It's only Rachel and Reuven that have this special relationship because he did chalitza with her, then now it's only a lav. So Rish Lakish says this is the only place it's a lav. In every other dynamic, Reuven with Dinah, Levi with both of them is going to be a chiv kares. Whereas Rabbi Yochanan says no. Once Reuven did chalitza with Rachel, the language he uses it is, Reuven is like the shliach of all the brothers, and Rachel like the shliach of all the other wives. So Reuven took care of Levi's responsibility. We give Levi and Yehuda and Issachar and all the brothers, they get the same status as Reuven does, vis-a-vis Rachel and vis-a-vis all the other women, because she's acting on behalf of them. So really, it's almost as if, this is a very interesting question to think about when we're learning Yevamos. What's actually happening when Reuven does Chalitza with Rachel? Is it just him and Rachel, or is he acting on behalf of all of the other brothers? She's acting on behalf of all the other wives, and it's like all of the other brothers did Chalitza, and all of the other wives got Chalitza. In which case, then, they all have this status. That's Rabbi Yochanan's opinion. It's a lot. Now, I might ask you, what's the nafka mina of saying this, besides the obvious question of, what if Levi tried to marry Dinah? In this case, Levi says, Dinah, I want to marry you, gives her kesef kiddushin.
It's wrong.
He's not supposed to, because it's even for the Rabbi Yochanan, it's still a lav, but does the kiddushin take? Well, if you hold like Reish Lakish, it doesn't take. If you hold like Rabbi Yochanan, it takes. Because according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's only a lav. You shouldn't do it, but if you did it, it's only a lav. What's another nafka mina? They got married and have a child. Mamzer? Not a mamzer. What's another nafka mina? What happens if, and here's the important, Reuven, this is going to be the case of our Gemara, Reuven marries Rachel, shouldn't have done it. He did chalitza, but then he decided afterwards to marry her. The kedushin, according to everybody, takes effect. And let's say Reuven has another wife, call her Penina, right? So now, Reuven has two wives. One of them is completely mutter to marry, but one of them is a lav, right? But they're married. So now, just to redraw the situation, right? We have, just to make it a little bit simple here. Now you have Reuven married to two women, Rachel and Penina. Rachel used to be up here, right?
What?
Remember, that's Shimon had a wife.
Oh.
Reuven did chalitza with her, right?
Right.
So first he did chalitza with her,
And then he married her.
and then he married her,
Which is allowed.
right? Big kedusha. So now he's got two wives. Shimon's dead. Dina ran off and did whatever she's doing. I got Reuven with two wives, and now Reuven dies. So Penina and Rachel are Yevamos because they no kids. And Levi still around. What's Levi got to do? Levi's got to do Yibum with one of these two ladies, right? Min HaTorah. Because Min HaTorah, even though Rachel's usher to be with Reuven, but she's still married to him. So therefore he's got two Yevamos.
It's only allowed.
It's only allowed. So it depends. According to Reish Lakish, who's Rachel? A Kares.
Oh, right.
According to Rabbi Yochanan, it's allowed.
Oh, Sarah too?
Yeah. So that's the Chiddush. So it says like this. So
Because he's the other brother.
So we're going to say like this. So Levi, who is a brother of Reuven, has a din of Yibum for any of the ladies that he leaves over, any of the wives. But it depends. Is she an erva or not? If she's an erva, which Reish Lakish would say she is, well, an erva pater tzara. If she's a lav doesn't pater tzara. So what's the halacha? What's Levi with Penina? Do we say that Levi with Penina patur mina yibum mina chalitza, or no? Do we say that she's needs chalitza? Okay. Let's read it.
Why didn't Reuben just marry Rob? Why would he do chalitza and then marry her later?
What are you, my wife? You asking questions why he did it that way?
Yeah,
this is the way he did it.
Makes sense.
You're right.
If he liked her, then
He didn't like her.
He didn't like it. That changed his mind later.
change his mind.
Yeah, she got a nose job. What's the difference? What are you asking? These ridiculous questions.
Yeah. Hello.
You're a smart guy.
He did the
What do you mean?
mitzvah because that's what he had to do. He didn't love her yet.
And later he started to fall in
Yeah.
love.
The girl lost a lot of weight. All of a sudden, boom. He's like, you know what? I think I like her now.
I still don't understand why he's not an Aphis anymore.
Let's talk it through.
He did chalitza.
Just forget the complicated picture.
It's still, you're still an error.
Why?
It's in Min HaTorah.
Time
Right?
it.
You know,
Are you okay?
Were you allowed to marry her? Were you allowed to do Yidden with her? Or you don't?
No,
you can.
Why?
but you're not-
Why?
Right.
Because there's
Zika.
because in the Torah it says,
So the Torah also- So this is the same Torah.
You're allowed to marry.
So the
your
same.
brothers
So the
or
same.
your
So listen. So the same Torah that says you could do yibum with your brother's wife says when you do chalitza,
I know what
there's
you're
no
saying.
the Israel Shazach never comes back. The pasuk says Kivin shalei bana shuv lo yivne. The pasuk says, "Shelo yivne beis achiv." He did not build the house of his brother. The Torah, there's a drasha. I mean, it's not an argument. It's in a little later Gemara. The Gemara later on says, we understand from that pasuk, the same way the pasuk says, Yevamos yavo aleha, therefore, even though she's your brother's wife. So to over here, it says over here that even though she's your brother's wife,
It's a pasuk.
the pasuk. I mean, it's not. For sure, it's a drasha. We make a drasha. The drasha says, "Kivin shalei bana shuv lo yivne," which means the Bryce is going to bring the pasuk, not here, but at a different place. And what it's effectively saying is that when he does chalitza, the Isser Eshazach, the Erev of Eshazach never comes back.
Okay, so it's an exception,
yeah.
just for that.
Of
just
course,
for
yeah,
Chalitza.
yeah.
Okay, why didn't you say that to begin with?
Well, I did. You didn't understand what I said when I said it. But yeah, now I'm saying it again. Now you understand. I should have phrased it more properly. That it's Xeris HaKasav, it's an exception because the Torah has a pasuk that we understand to mean. Now, the exception, good. The exception is only that it's not a kares, that it's not an erva. But in that exception, the Gemara didn't drop it off the board completely. It still said it's usher. It's still going to be, this is going to be usher. It's going to still be
Why is
usher.
it usher? There's
Because the Torah says, Kivin shalei bana shuv lo yivne. Meaning once you didn't do yibam the first time, now there's an issa deraisa to marry her. But it's not a chiv kares.
A lav.
It's only a lav.
If other brothers might.
Now, what's a lav? A lav is something that Hashem says, I don't want you to marry this woman. But if you did kesef kiddushin with her, you said, Harei Mikudesh, just leave in front of Eidim.
Tavis.
Typhus takes. You might divorce her 5 seconds later, but make her then you're married. If she wants to go marry someone else, she needs a get. If you have a child with her, the child is a good kosher person. So now that we set up the case, says the Gemara, Eitzvei, I have a brisa, and this is going to be, remember, Rabbi Yochanan is the one who's going to say that Levi is only usher on Rachel as a lav. So there's two practical nafkaminas of that. Number one, if Reuven dies, Levi has to deal with Rachel. Levi has to be miyab and mecholitz here because there's no erva according to Rabbi Yochanan. The other nafkamina is what happens. I didn't point this out. Is what happens if let a marker whip. Black marker. What happens if, in the original case, instead of Reuven doing chalitza, what if Levi jumped the gun and did chalitza? Not chalitza. What if before Reuven did chalitza? No, sorry, before Reuven did kiddushin here, Levi did kiddushin.
What's again?
What if Levi tried to marry Rachel?
After Chalitza?
Yeah, I'll draw a mini version of the case down here. Right? You have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi.
That's what you said. He always loved her, right? And
Yeah,
now he wants
Shimon
to-
was married to Rachel and to Leah. Sorry, to Dinah. Right? And what did we say? We said that Reuven did chalitza with Rachel. So now everyone's mutter. But instead of now going and marrying Rachel, which is this here, instead Levi marries Rachel. What if Levi tries to marry Rachel? According to Reish Lakish, it doesn't matter. It's not typhus. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it is typhus. Right? Follow? Levi marrying Rachel is Levi doing an Aveira. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it would only be an Aveira of a lav. According to Reish Lakish, that Aveira is a kares, meaning, and therefore it doesn't take. Right? So those two nafkaminas, those two consequences are going to be relevant for the next price. Price says as follows. Ace for Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan, who says that Levi with Rachel is only a lav, asks on Reish Lakish, who says that Levi with Rachel is a kares, the following brisa. It says, Hacholetz liyavimto, Reuven gave chalitza to Rachel, the Chazar v'Kitsha, and then Reuven got married to her again. And Mace. So now Reuven died. That's this case right here. It's mamish this case. Reuven did chalitza and then married her. Tzricha chalitza mina achin. Rachel and Dinah need chalitza from Reuven dies, needs from Levi. Why? I thought Rachel's an erva. According to Reish Lakish, it's an erva. So says Rabbi Yochanan. This brisa is mashma like me. Bishlam ledidid amina chayve lavin. That the relationship between Levi and Rachel is only chayve lavin. Then there's no tzaras. There's no tzaras erva here. You might even say, and why no yibam? Because okay, there still is an isser lav. So do chalitza, don't do yibam. According to Reish Lakish, that Rachel and Levi are a kares, then that means she's an erva. An erva and a tzaras erva are p'tur min yibam and a chalitza. So then I might tzrich chalitza. So Reish Lakish answers back, okay, fine, you're right. This part of the brisa looks good, but you didn't read me the whole brisa. According to you, ema seifa, read the seifa. What does the seifa say? What if Levi, instead of Reuven jumping the gun and marrying Rachel, what if Levi married Rachel? Now, what should be the case? According to Rabbi Yochanan, this should be a good kiddushin, meaning it's aser, but Rachel and Levi are only aser belav, and if he made kiddushin, the kiddushin should take. According to Rish Lakish, the kiddushin shouldn't take. So says Rish Lakish, Amad echad min ha'achin. Let's say Levi got up, Kitcha, and married Rachel, who is, according to Rish Lakish, his kares. Ein la olav klum. You see, the kiddushin doesn't take. She doesn't need a get. That's much more like Rish Lakish, right? V'chai ve'lavin, and according to you, Rabbi Yochanan, Levi and Rachel are only chai ve'lavin. Amai ein la olav klum. Why is there no kiddushin tofus over there? It should be tofus. So Rav Sheshes just for a brief moment suggests, no, Rabbi Yochanan will answer very simply that the Seifa is going like Rabbi Akiva, who holds that kiddushin is not tofus v'chai ve'lavin. Rav Sheshes Seifa is only Rabbi Akiva. Remember, we learned Rabbi Akiva is the one Tana who holds that there's no difference between a lav and a kares when it comes to marriage. If a person marries someone, even if she's a lav, it doesn't take. So at first, the Gemara says, Rav Sheshes, Rabbi Yochanan will answer this question and say, the Seifa works great like me. The Seifa is going like Rabbi Akiva. Meaning what? He'll say the Brisa is the Tanakama and the Reisha, and the Seifa is something Rabbi Akiva. The Amr ein kiddushin toivs and b'chai ve'lav. The Gemara says, 1 second, then why did you have to come up with a whole new case of Levi jumping the gun and marrying Rachel? Why couldn't you have said that case here with Reuven? According to Rish Lakish, the only one that's not tofus is Levi with Rachel. But he would agree that Reuven with Rachel works. Rabbi Akiva would disagree with this. Because Rabbi Akiva would say all chai ve'lavin are not Tayis Kedushin. So if all that was going on in the Brisa is the Reisha is the Rabbanon and the Seif is Rabbi Akiva, why did you need to introduce a new case? Why not just say in the first case where Reuven went ahead and jumped the gun, say over there, doesn't. So if it's Rabbi Akiva, so listening, Divrei Rabbi Akiva, ain't loyal of klum. That's the Gemara's question.
The Gemara was an easier question. The Gemara is asking then, why doesn't the Brisa say Divrei Rabbi Akiva ain't loyal of klum?
Exactly. It's a kashan of Shesh's answer. Rabbi Yochanan was trying to, Rish Sheshes was trying to explain it on behalf of Rabbi Yochanan, that the safe is going like Rabbi Akiva.
Just say it. You're not asking your question.
What's that?
You're not saying what you're saying.
But he's saying he said he's not bothered that it didn't say Rabbi Akiva. He's bothered that.
He is. Let the Brisa say the Rabbi Akiva ain't a klum.
Meaning to say and not change the case.
That's what he's saying.
Well, if it's changing the case, then you don't need to say Rabbi Akiva. Meaning the whole point, the whole raya, the whole answer was coming from the fact that I'll say that the first case is talking about the Chachamim and the second case is talking about Rabbi Akiva. And why? Because the Ein Kedushin Tovs and B'chai Ve'lavin. But you don't have, if that's what's actually going on here, then why do you have to change the case? Just simply keep it the same case and say the Reisha is like the Chachamim and Rabbi Akiva argues. Because Rabbi Akiva would argue. It's mashma that it's not talking about, it's mashma that it's all talking about the same person. And if it's all talking about the same person, then the Reisha is mashma like Rabbi Yochanan, and the Seif is like Rabbi Akiva, like Rish Lakish. So again, before the Gemara, so Gemara says kasha. So this little sidebar here, we're going to push off. We're going to get back to the Brisa. So let's just review. What does the Brisa say? Right? The Brisa is going to say, we're going to follow the Reisha and the Seifa. Okay, the Reisha is much better with Rabbi Yochanan. The Seifa is much better with Rish Lakish. Why? Because in the Reisha it said that these two ladies over here, need chalitza from Levi. Why do they need chalitza from Levi? If this is an erva, which according to Rish Lakish it is, they shouldn't need any chalitza. That's why the Reisha sounds a lot more like Rabbi Yochanan. And the Seifa, which says that if Levi jumped the gun and married Rachel, the kedushin's not typhus. Why isn't it typhus? According to Rish Lakish, it's not typhus, but according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's only a lav. It should be typhus. That's why it's more mash Rish Lakish in the Sefer. So we got to figure out how to make it work. So we're going to layer in Eishes Achiv Shaloi Hayu Ba'olamo. The way we're going to solve the problem is by explaining. Because again, what is Reuven, Shimon, and Levi talking about? This is the question. When was Levi born? Just speak it out loud. Let's say Levi wasn't born yet.
All right.
So if Levi wasn't born, right? And when this all happened, right? So Shimon dies, Rachel falls to Reuven with Dinah. Reuven does chalitza with Rachel. So now the only issur that exists for Rachel with Reuven is an issur lav according to everyone. Everyone would agree. And now Levi's born. So who is Rachel to Levi at this point?
Erva.
What's the erva? That's right. Yeah. Well, it depends. Because we know there's a machlokas between the Reb Shimon and the Rabbanan and Eishes Achav Shel Ha'abel, and we've seen this a couple of times already.
Yeah.
The only way, according to Reb Shimon, this is an erva, is if Reuven hasn't yet remarried her. But if, let's say Reuven, so go back here, Levi doesn't exist yet, does chalitza, and then he remarries her. And now Rachel and Reuven are married 100%. Reuven and Rachel are married 100%. Now Levi is born. The world that Levi is born into is just a brother Reuven who's got a wife Rachel and another wife Pinion. According to Reb Shimon, that's not Eishes Achav Shel Ha'abel. These are two 100% kosher wives that when no isser, nothing wrong. No isser Eishes Achav Shel Ha'abel. And there's no isser of being with Rachel because Levi wasn't alive when Reuven. He wasn't alive then. Shimon died. Rachel did chalitza. He was never someone who could have done yibum to Rachel anyways. The only reason why Reuven's usher b'lav is because he should have done yibum. He didn't. He did chalitza. He wasn't around to do yibum. So his avera of the lav even doesn't exist. Levi is 100% mutter to be with Rachel.
If Reuven does. Reuven dies.
Yeah, obviously not while Reuven's alive. It's his wife's brother.
Then Levi
Sorry, his brother's wife.
Yibum with Rachel.
Right, and that's going to even be true according to Rish Lakish. Right, that's the key. So we're going to say that the Reisha is talking about where Levi wasn't born yet. And when was Levi born? Only after Reuven made this Kedushin. Now Levi's born, so sure, Rish Lakish will say in the Reisha that Levi, right, who doesn't have an Isser, if Reuven dies, these two ladies need Chalitza, or Yibam or Chalitza.
Only according to one opinion, Shimon?
Only according to Shimon.
Because according to everybody else.
Because according to the Chachamim, you can never get rid of Eishes Achav Shel Ha'abel, no matter how it happens. If you're born after Shimon dies, if Levi and Shimon ever lived together, every woman that has ever been married to Shimon is always and forever going to be Asur on Levi. 1 second. Therefore, no matter what, so what? So he was dead. Sorry, he wasn't born yet. Reuven did Chalitza, then got remarried, and now he's born. If Reuven dies, who's Rachel to him? According to the Rabbanan, Eishes Achav Shel Ha'abel. Right? That's obvious. So says the Gemara, we're going to see in a moment, how are we going to answer it for Rish Lakish? By saying the Reish is talking about Eishes Achav Shel Ha'abel like Reb Shimon. Let's just flip it. How are we going to answer the one from Rabbi Yochanan? We're going to do the exact opposite. Rabbi Yochanan holds the Reish is great because the Reish is talking about a case where Levi was alive during this entire time, and since Rabbi Yochanan holds that Levi with Rachel is only an Isser Lav, therefore when Reuven dies, there's a Yibam here. So the first half of the Reish is good. The Seif is a problem. Why is it that if Levi jumps the gun and marries Rachel here before this all happens, why is it that doesn't take? According to Rabbi Yochanan, it should take. This is only an Isser Lav. The answer is, we're talking about a case of Eishes Achav Shel Ha'abel. Meaning what? That Shimon dies, leaves these two ladies over. Reuven goes and does Chalitza, let's say, and then he remarries her. And then he divorces her. Or he doesn't even remarry her. He just does Chalitza. Doesn't make a difference. The point is he did Chalitza, and now Levi's born. If Levi tried to marry Rachel now, after Reuven did the Chalitza, who is she? Eishes Achav Shel Ha'abel. According to who? Everybody, but really, more importantly, the Chachamim. Because he's born while she's just a Chalutza. She hasn't gotten remarried to Reuven yet. So even Rabbi Yochanan, who normally would say it's only a lab, would say, what do you mean? It's a kares. It's for a different reason. For Eishes Achav Shel Ha'abel. And he'll say that's what's going on.
Oh, not according to Shimon?
It happens to be, if he does it while she's a chalutz, it'll also be even true according to Reb Shimon. The way the Gemara is going to set it up, it's going to set it up that Reuven remarried Rachel and then divorced her. So now she's just open and available. And yeah. The Gemara is going to explain it. We'll read it inside, but you had a question.
So I don't understand why Reuven is given the chalitza to Rebbe, right?
Yeah.
So then why, if he could go ahead and he could go ahead and marry Rachel, right?
He's not allowed to, but if he does, it takes effect.
Right. So what's the problem with, Levi? Forget about, he's not dead. He wasn't born. He's still.
Which case are you talking about? You're talking about the main case to start with, or in the suggestion I just made? Okay.
The one to
the
start
beginning.
with.
The one to start with. Okay.
Yeah. What's the issue?
No, it's okay. Take it up.
With him and with with him and Rachel.
Let's think about it. Ready? Slowly. Reuven has remarried her. Yeah? Okay. Levi and Rachel are Eishes Ach without a mitzvah. According to Reish Lakish, that's a kares.
Right.
The reason why Rabbi Yochanan says that when Reuven did chalitza with Rachel, that knocked out all of the other ladies as if they did chalitza, and it's as if Levi did chalitza also. So all the brothers and all of the ladies have the same status of Reuven and Rachel according to Rabbi Yochanan. It's like he's the shliach for all the other brothers, and she's the shliach of all the other ladies, of the wives. So therefore, everyone has only an Isser Lav. So it's like the erva never came back to anybody.
So Levi could also marry Rachel after the chalitza.
Technically, yeah.
Just like
Not allowed to, but if he did, it takes
Reuben did. It's just a law. Reuben went ahead and said, "Oh, I love her." Levi could do the same thing.
Correct.
Oh, he's got
Now,
the
when you say he could have, you just mean if he did, it would take effect. Remember, it's still always going to be usher to do. It's still a lot. It's still the Torah is saying don't do it.
Yeah.
But if he did it, it would take effect. Correct. Exactly.
Right.
In fact, that's what
the same thing. So that exception that you spoke to before, it
would apply across the board. Now, that's exactly what's going on in the Seifa. The Seifa, it says that if Levi tried to marry Rachel, it says it doesn't work. That's a kasha on Rabbi Yochanan. Because it should work. It's got to be consistent. If Reuven can marry Rachel, and if he dies, Levi has yibum with Rachel, or chalitza with Rachel, then Levi should have been able to marry Rachel too. Again, the Kedushin should have taken. So there's a stira, there's a contradiction from the Reisha to the Seifa. In the Reisha, we're saying there is a requirement with, again, in the Reisha, we're always discussing the relationship between Levi and the Rachel. In the Reisha needs chalitza, and the Seifa,
the Reisha and the
Kedushin,
Seifa.
1 second, sorry, I'll explain that in a second. Kedushin is not nofus between Levi and Rachel. Reisha just means the first half of the brisa. The Seifa, the Seifa just means the second half. So in the first half of the brisa, it says that if Reuven dies, Rachel and Levi need to do chalitza, which means what? That she's not an erva to him. And yet, in the Seifa, in the second half of the brisa, it says that had Levi decided, instead of Reuven to marry, he decided to marry her, the Kedushin doesn't take, which sounds like she is an erva to him. So which one is it? Is it like Rav Shlakish that she's an erva, or is it like Rabbi Yochanan that she's a leper? So the beginning looks like a lot like Rabbi Yochanan. The Seifa looks a lot like Rav Shlakish. So the Gemara is going to explain that each one of these opinions, we could read the brisa according to them from beginning to end, which means if I'm going to explain the brisa according to Rabbi Yochanan, I don't have to worry about the Reisha. Reisha is already fine. I have to explain the Seifa. So meaning to say, I have to figure out why is it that when Levi tries to marry Rachel, it doesn't work, according to Rabbi Yochanan. And the answer is going to be because Levi wasn't born when Shimon died. And since he wasn't born when Shimon died, and like the Chachamim, that would mean Rachel is Eishes actually. The reason why this doesn't work isn't because of this issue. This is a separate issue of Eishes
We learned early on.
That's going to be the explanation for Rabbi Yochanan. But how am I going to explain Rish Lakish? The Seifa works. I understand exactly why Levi can't marry Rachel. Because Rachel is an Isser Kares, Eishes Shalav Mitzvah. But why is it in the Reisha when Reuven does chalitza and then remarries Rachel and now dies? According to Rish Lakish, this relationship is an erva relationship. So when he dies, there should be no chalitza here. Why does it say in the Reisha that you do need chalitza? So we'll say this is also talking about where Eishes Shalav. Why? Because we'll say that when was Levi born? Only after Reuven did remarried. So since Shimon died, Rachel he did chalitza with, and then he remarried her, which he shouldn't have, but it takes. So now, according to Rish Lakish, they're married. They're all married. Problem is now Levi's born. Why does Levi need chalitza from Rachel? Why does Rachel need chalitza from Levi? Because she's an Eishes Achshel Haba, according to Reb Shimon. According to Reb Shimon, in this case, she's not an Eishes Achshel Haba. So therefore, meaning the advantage of making it a case of Eishes Achshel Haba is really not because of Eishes Achshel Haba. It's that since he's born only after, this Aveira, the Aveira that Reuven has, or any of the brothers have to be with Rachel, never took effect. It only takes effect on a guy who could have dug Yibam with Rachel, but he wasn't alive. So there's no Aveira for Levi to be with Rachel whatsoever in that scenario. The only possible Isser would be Eishes Achshel Haba. But if you hold like Reb Shimon, that's not Eishes Achshel Haba, because when was Levi born? After Reuven had already married Rachel. And since he was married, he wasn't born into an environment where she was just like standing free to be with him. Therefore, it's
It's allowed.
It's only a lot. And so therefore, it needs chalitza.
Therefore, what?
Therefore, in the ratio, according to Rish Lakish, it'll need chalitza. Not because of this din.
How come the chorus left?
In which case?
Case just doing now where it was Achav Shlei B'Lam according to the Shimon.
I want to make sure I understand your question.
According to the Shimon.
Yeah.
It was not a problem of Achav Shlei B'Lam.
Correct. According to him.
But what about the original?
Shimon's original is a problem, right?
Right.
Meaning Shimon's wife, Rachel, was Levi's brother's wife, although they never met.
Right.
Shimon's halacha is if that Reuven would have done yibum with Rachel,
Right.
then Levi's born, then there's no problem of Eishtach Shalom.
Right.
You're asking, but he didn't do yibum. He did chalitza,
Yeah.
which means at that moment that he did chalitza, it's Eishes Achiv. Shalahaya Ba'olama.
Yeah.
Let's say Reuben would have been born at that moment in time, before Reuben would have married Rachel.
That would have
That would have been an Eishes Achiv,
Yeah,
even
but
according to
you-
Reb Shimon, correct? That's a very good question. It's clear in the Gemara, Reb Chanan speaks this out, it's clear in the Gemara that we're treating Reuben remarrying Rachel after doing chalitza the same way we would consider as if he just did yibum. Had he done yibum and Levi been born, that's Reb Shimon saying that's not a problem of Eishes Achiv Shalai Ba'alama. We're assuming that when Reuben does chalitza and then follows that up with it, that's a big chiddush, by the way. That's a big chiddush. Because maybe the chiddush was only said by yibum. Here, when he did chalitza, according to Reish Lakish, she's an Eishes Achiv Shalai Ba'alama. Who is to say that when Reuben does this marriage, that marriage is mafkia? That maybe that's a special halacha. That's a very good question. I don't want to address it too much in detail. Number one, because I don't have the answer. Number two, because I think it's going to make us confused. So let's not read it inside. What did we say? We have a Reisha like Rabbi Yochanan and a Sefer like Reish Lakish. Says the Gemara. Rav Ashi Savar like Reish Lakish and Mataritz like Reb Shimon. Meaning, we're going to explain the Brisa according to Reish Lakish by utilizing the opinion of Reb Shimon by Eishes Achiv Shalai Ba'alama. Ravina Savar like Rabbi Yochanan. He'll explain the Brisa like Rabbi Yochanan and how by utilizing Eishes Achiv Shalai Ba'alama according to who Mataritz Kirabana. Now the Gemara is just going to speak it out. Rav Ashi Savar like Reish Lakish. Mataritz like Reb Shimon. Let's read the new Brisa that we're now going to explain with these opinions. Choletz liyavimto, Ruvain did chalitza to Rachel, v'chazar v'kitcha, and then he remarried her, which everyone agrees, although we shouldn't have, the kedushin takes. Kedushin is tofus. So therefore, if he dies, tzrich chalitza min ha'achin. Rachel needs chalitza from Levi. Why? Because that's very good. Rabbi Yochanan holds that the kedushin is tofus. This is a regular case of yibum, and Levi and Rachel are only aser belav. So who are these achin? Man achin, achin. I'm sorry, we're going into Reish Lakish. Look that again. I'll start again. I messed up. Rav Ashi Savar like Reish Lakish and Mataritz like Reb Shimon. We're going into Reish Lakish's opinion. Hacholz liyavimto. Reuven did chalitza with Rachel. V'chazar v'kitcha, and then he remarried her, which he was allowed to do. Not allowed to, but he did. The kedushin takes. Tzrich chalitza min achin. If he dies, even though Levi and Rachel should be erev to each other according to Reish Lakish, Levi is going to have to do chalitza with Rachel. Why? Man achin hayiludim. We're talking about the new brothers, meaning to say Levi, who was only born after Shimon passed and Reuven had already done the kiddushin. So Levi is a yavam from Reuven because he was alive when Reuven was alive. He wasn't alive when Shimon was alive. Therefore, Reish Lakish will say that he has a chiyuv to do yibum or chalitza with Rachel. And since Rachel is an Eishes Achiv Shalai Ba'alama, but only according to who? According to the Chachamim, but Reb Shimon not. There's no erva here, and therefore there's a din yibum. Yeah. So come on, Reb Shimon. That's why you need a chalitza. However, the seifa, that's going to be very good. Amar echan min hagadolim. Sorry, hanuladim. The kitcha. The seifa was very good in Reish Lakish. There's no problem. We don't have to make any changes. We're talking about a case where Levi was alive when Shimon died. No big deal. So Eila Olav Klum Kiman Reish Lakish. That's like Reish Lakish's opinion to be given. So that's how we explain the Brisa according to Reish Lakish. Ravina Savar Rabbi Yochanan, and Ravina is explaining the opinion of the Brisa to be in accord with Rabbi Yochanan's shita, that holds that all of the brothers and all of the wives are only aser belav. How does he explain it? Mitaritz la'li b'derabbanan will say like this: the Reisha is very good in Rabbi Yochanan. You don't have to make any changes. Hacholitz liyavim. So Reuven does chalitza with Rachel, the chazar and remarries her. The kedushin takes, and doesn't say it here, but and he dies. Tzricha chalitza min achin. That's fine. Rabbi Yochanan, nothing has to change. Man achin, even achin hanulatim. Even if Levi was alive when Shimon happened, because Levi and Rachel, according to Rabbi Yochanan, are only also belav. Kiman, Rabbi Yochanan, that works. However, what's the Sefer? The Sefer where it says that if Levi decided to marry Rachel, the Kedushin doesn't take, according to Rabbi Yochanan, it should take. Meaning Levi, who was born only after Shimon died. So he's an Eishes Ach Shaloi Haya Ba'olamo, tried to make Vikitcha and tried to make Kedushin in Rachel. Who is Rachel to him? It's just Eishes Ach Shaloi Haya Ba'olamo, Ein Lo Olav Klum, Kiman Kirabanan, who holds that that's considered an Eishes Ach Shaloi Haya Ba'olamo. And that is how we'll explain the Brayso according to both Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Now, just one more line as related to Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, and we'll move on to the next thing. Itmar. New case, but just we're going to reference both. Habo al Yevamos. New case. Real simple, I promise. Reuven and Shimon. Yeah? Reuven and Shimon. Shimon has a wife. We'll call her Rachel. Same case. And we'll call his other wife Dina. Yeah? They're brothers. Shimon dies.
No.
Sorry, I forgot. Levi. Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Yeah? Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Shimon has two wives, Rachel and Dina. Reuven does Yibam. So now they're married. Dina and Levi, what's their deal? Are they allowed to be with each other?
No.
Why not?
His brother's wife.
Same machlekes. Meaning Rish Lakish and Yochanan are only arguing, not because of chalitza, they're arguing what happens after the responsibilities are taken care of. Who is Dina and Levi? Says the Gemara the following, Itmar.
Why? It's a co-wife. It's a Sarah, right?
Yeah, but
he's not allowed to marry.
Once Reuven did Yibam with Rachel, Rachel is acting as the shliach of Dina, and Reuven is acting as the shliach of Levi, according to Rabbi Yochanan. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, this woman is no longer Eishes at all. Doesn't have the erva. She's only going to be usher with the lav. So according to Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rish Lakish, she's not doing her shlichus. He's not doing his shlichus.
So what's the negative commandment here? Exactly.
So the negative commandment's a little bit different here with Yibam than with Chalitza. With Chalitza, it's called Kivin Shalei Bona Shuv Lo Yivna. That's an actual lav. Here, it's actually Bayis Echad Hu Bona Ve'eno Bona Shnei Batim. He's only supposed to build one home, meaning there's only supposed to be one Yibam. So this is a new Isser called don't build a second house with your brother's wife. But it's not even a lav really, it's an assay. The assay is build one home, and it's a lav haba michlal assay. We learn not to do it with Dina from the fact that it says only do it with Rachel. But there's no Isser Karis, according to Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rish Lakish, that Karis always exists, it never goes away. Therefore, says the Gemara, Haba Yevamos, Uba Echad Min Ha'achen Al Sarasa. So Reuven did Yibum with Rachel, and then Levi has Pia with Dina. What is that Avera? Is that an Isser Karis or is that not an Isser Karis?
Same as like this.
Pligi Boravacha Veravina, Chad Amar Bekaris, Vechad Amar Be'aseh. One says Karis, and one says, we're calling it here a lav, but it's a lav Haba Michlal Aseh. You guys know what that is? But lav Haba Michlal Aseh is the Torah sometimes will say, do X, and we extrapolate from there. That's to do, don't do that. So don't build something else. The Torah doesn't explicitly say don't do it. It says do X. If I know to do X, it means don't do what. Sometimes the Torah will give us a negative commandment through a positive commandment. That's what this is. Right? So therefore, once Reuven did Yibam with Rachel, the home of Shimon has been built. You cannot build another home. What are you doing here? You're building another home. That's not allowed, but not because she's an erva. Because again, according to Rabbi Yochanan, she's not an erva.
There's no more Zikra bond.
Zikra bond is gone, and the Isser Karis is gone. There's no Ish Ach. It's gone according to Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rish Lakish, it never goes away. So says the Gemara, Manda Amar Bekaris, the Shita over here who said it's Bekaris is Rish Lakish. And the opinion, Manda Amar Basei is Rabbi Yochanan. All that's being stated in this Itmar is everything we discussed until now with Chalitza is also true for Yibam. That's all the Gemara is. And that is the end of the Gemara when it comes to Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish about this.
Yeah.
The Gemara has two more discussions. What time is it? Yeah, we'll go a little weiter. I want to try to cover some ground to get on the base. So I don't want to fall behind.
Are we doing the whole base thing?
Yeah, we're gonna go down as far as we can. Yeah, I mean, definitely down to here if we can. And when I say the Gemara goes smooth, it goes smooth in the sense that it's not like these crazy choppy cases. But it's, Sarasota is a big sugi, Sarasota is a big sugi.
I understand more than I did in 3 days already. I don't know why, but
I'm happy.
A lot.
Look, it's going slow.
Yeah, it's okay. It's a beautiful day today. Today's like it's like the Shlosha Simei Hakbala to a certain extent. We had for Shabbos is coming. Today's anyways a day that's it's a day of Chaparan.
Purim's not over.
Not over. This is the real time.
What's birthday?
The rabbi's birthday was
Hello.
Rabbi's birthday was on Tainus Esther. Your English birthday. That was my Hebrew birthday. I was born on Tainus Esther.
Oh, wow. You were born on fast.
I doubt my parents are fasting. I was born on Tainus Esther, and my Hebrew name is Baruch Mordechai Yosef. What is it funny? I was named after someone named Baruch Mordechai.
Wow.
Meaning it wasn't like I was named Baruch Mordechai because I was born around Purim time.
Wow.
It might be they chose to name me Baruch Mordechai because of that, but I doubt it.
I think I know when
You
you're
do have a point that you
Chas
never
v'shalom. I think I know when Chas v'shalom you're going to die.
Right. That's not much.
I mean,
So
it's a big,
like Moshe Rabbeinu.
only the biggest tzaddikim died on the day that they were born. Which is why that's why.
That's very nice. Very nice of you to say. But, let's hold on. My two of my best friends growing up, also born on Tainus Esther. We all share the same birthday, and
It's unbelievable.
and we all married women with the name Sarah. Don't ask me what's the
It's unbelievable.
Weird, right? We both married girls named Sarah. We were all three of us born on Tainus Esther, and we all have the name Baruch in our name somewhere. One of them is like the second, like
You're all like Avraham
Elchanan
Avinu.
Baruch.
Beginning.
What?
You're all like
Came
Avraham
from the
Avinu.
same Chelko and Gan Eden.
Yeah, it's a Shem. I should be talking about there.
Calling you Baruch Mordechai from now on.
Yeah, no problem. It's inside my hat. My acronym when I was in she was BMW. Okay. I'm Rav Yehuda Marav. New case. Torah Sota. I'm not having breakfast.
Breakfast.
I got to run to a meeting in 5 minutes. I got to get.
No way.
Let's talk about Torah
I gotta
Sota.
work today.
When you started the black.
You have Reuven
I already pushed back 3 meetings to get to
and you have Shimon.
when I can't. Yeah.
Shimon has 2 wives, Rachel and Dina. Rachel, not a nice lady. She went ahead. Let's not say David, because David's a hush person. She went ahead
Who done it?
and had snus with Bob. Hello? What's going on over
Let's start again.
here? No,
Who done it?
Rabbi. No, we can't do this. It doesn't work.
What are you saying again? Start again.
Doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Start again.
I thought I heard it was Chaim. He's in Chaim.
No, time
He just said that Chaim was up there.
Really?
Who's that?
You serious?
That's worthy of
Oh my
stopping.
gosh.
Who's that?
Of Chaim Kanievsky? That's worthy of stopping the death.
100% sure about that?
I was just like, this is ridiculous.
Where'd you hear that?
John's cool.
Yes.
John's-
Yes.
No, that's worthy of stopping the death for.
Oh my
Good
gosh.
flesh from that.
Oh my gosh. I'm jealous. I didn't realize. I was just by him
Yeah.
for a long time. It was the longest I've ever sat with him.
You just play him now?
Yeah, I sat with him for 10 minutes, 5 minutes. Didn't bother. Sat, looked at everything. Give my kid lollipop.
And the end.
So,
He would want us to keep learning.
Of course they're gonna keep
Probably.
doing it.
I think it would too. But
Of course they're gonna do it. You
you cannot take a moment to.
You can't stop that.
That
I
is,
was by him. Perfectly fine.
we have to do a lot of tshuva right now. Yeah, the tzaddik like that's living in the world, holding up the world. Just left.
That's big brachas.
We left right after the
A lot of times you never know how protected you are by someone,
How crazy I just saw.
right?
What's mean that he passed away on Yom Kippur? On Purim?
It's not Purim. It's Rishon.
No, in Israel it's Purim.
No, he lives in Bnei Brak. But even so, it doesn't matter. I don't know. But I don't. I mean, you really have to stop for a moment and acknowledge, right, the protection that he provided for us, but the learning that he would do with just existing in the world. Now he's gone. You have to be very. It's like all of a sudden the alarm system in your house is broken, the locks don't work anymore. Be very vigilant.
Also, he's a tzaddik, ben tzaddik. So the cipher. No, it's a big deal.
Okay, let's fight a little bit. Sorry, something. The Shama should have a deal. It's Yoshi for all of us. At least as good as he was while he was here. Okay. Torah Sota.
It'd be better.
Reuven and Shimon are brothers. Shimon was married to Rachel and to Dina. Rachel, unfortunately, was not a good lady. She went ahead and was Mazana with Bob. Yeah, she went ahead and had snus with Bob. in front of Adam.
I changed made Bob.
Why is Bob a bad guy?
But Bob's a good guy.
Oh, our Bob is a good guy. You're right.
Joe.
I know a lot of jokes.
Jack.
John. No, I mean J-O-H-A.
Sean.
H-A.
I can't find bad guys. Everyone's good guys.
Sean. Okay.
Okay. Now, Sean has to be a Jew. I know it's historic, but okay. So Rachel is
Stevie. Put Stevie.
No,
Please.
Chas v'shalom. Rachel is mezana with Sean in front of Adam. This is a known fact. The halacha is this woman. Technically, she's not called a sota. Actually,
Where's
a sota really is a woman who's only. We're not sure. Her husband said, "Don't go with Sean room over there," and then she did in front of Adam. We don't know what they did. She goes in the mesota, her belly blows up. You know that we'll get to that on the base. But-
Worse than a sofa.
Sota, we don't know. Here, this is a person who we know for sure she did snus.
So what is she?
She's an Ashes Ishtas, and so the halacha is that Shimon must marry her, must divorce her. He's not allowed to stay with her. Right now, Shimon and his wife are not allowed to be together. It would be like Shimon being a kohen and his wife being a grusha. He has to divorce her. Now, what's the halacha if Shimon sleeps with his wife now afterwards? Is he chayv kares? No, it's not a chayv kares. The issur to be with the woman who cheated on you with another man while you were married is asur min haTorah to be with her, but it's only a lav, not a chayv kares. Important. Let's say Shimon dies.
Okay.
Right? So Shimon dies. Reuven has two wives. Sorry, Shimon had two wives that are falling to him in Yibum. One of them was Shimon's sota. So what would you think without knowing anything?
It's a love. It's only a
It's
love.
only a lav. No reason why they shouldn't fall to him in Yibum, right? So this came up on Daf Gimel. We came up with it when the Mishnah had said there's 15 women that are going to be putter and pater the tzaras. We said, what's 15 coming to exclude? One of the cases we came to exclude, who is she? She is a tzaras sota. Now here, I'm going to put this in quotes, because technically, Rachel is not a sota. But for our context, we're calling her a sota, because what's a sota? We're calling her a woman who's been in the zana. So is this woman Dina? She petura min hayibam min a chalitza. Could she just go run off and marry, or not? Or do we say Reuven has to do yibam and chalitza with her? Now she can't be petura. Now, meaning to say, it's possible to say that Rachel is chayiv in chalitza or yibam. It is possible to say that Dina would be petura min a chalitza and yibam. It is possible to say that.
Right.
Meaning, why she would be is a different discussion. Meaning, it's possible to say that she could have a din yibam and she could have no din yibam. Rav, we're going to see in a second, is going to say that since the parsha of Sota, meaning Sotas Vadai, says the word Tuma, right? Nistara vehi nitma, she became Tame. Once we, oh my gosh. So since it says by the parsha of
Why are
Sota,
you splitting between Rachel and Dina?
what's that?
Why are you splitting the ticket between Rachel and Dina?
Why am I splitting the what?
You just said it was possible that Rachel.
I mean, they're two separate women. It is possible, theoretically speaking, for Reuven to have a din yibam with Rachel and to not have a din with Dina. It's possible. There's the sota and the Sarah sota.
Yeah.
So in all likelihood, it's not. It's they're going to have the same halach.
Yeah, right.
Okay. I'm pointing it out because as we go by, it'll be relevant. So let's say in this case over here, so Shimon dies, Rachel and Dina are falling to him. So Rachel, it says in the Torah, it uses a lashon of tuma. Nitma, nistara v'hi nitma. Nitma, the lashon tuma is also said by Rayos. So Rav's going to make like a hekesh and say that once you're telling me that Rachel has like a status of tameh, that just like an erva has a status of tameh, we're going to treat her like an erva. So much so that even Dina is going to be p'turim min hachalitza. That's the sheet of Rav.
Wow.
Whereas we're going to say, and this is a machlekes rishonim, I think, how far we take this tumah thing. How far of a status of an erva are we going to give Rachel? Is it, and this is a discussion of the rishonim, is it that you can't do yibam, but she needs chalitza? Right?
Yeah.
Meaning, she's like an erva in the sense that there's no heter of yibam. But even Rachel, you're going to need a chalitza. And certainly Dina is still going to need you can even do yibam with. Or are we saying no, that Rachel and Dina are only bechalitza and not b'yibam? Or do we say, like Rav, that Rachel is no yibam and no chalitza, and not only that, even Dina is no yibam and chalitza? These are the different ways you could learn.
Well, because of Tumah.
All because by Rachel, the sota, right, she's a Sarah sota, Rachel the sota uses a lashon of tumah. That's the sheet of Rav. Let's see it inside.
Really?
Says the Gemara, review the Merav Torah sota asura. Now, the language of Asura is a little bit funny. It really should say Petura, because Rav's opinion, Hosea and Rashi both say the same thing. Asura here means there's no Zika B'chlal. Amar Rav Yehuda Merav Tzara Sota Asura. So not only is Rachel for sure not Nofelis Liyibum, but even Dina's not. The Tzara Sota. Why? Tumak Sivba Kiarayos. Rashi speaks this out very, very plainly at the end of the Rashi Tzara Sota Asura, like 4 or 5 lines down in the thick lines. He says, "My taima tumak sivba v'nistara v'hi nitma." Like the pasuk I quoted, nitma ki arayas dechsiv al titamu b'kolela. Uses the lashon of tumah by the arayas. Just to speak it out loud, meaning ma arayos the ptur min achalitza min ha'ibum. So too the sota is ptur min ha'ibum min achalitza, and just like an erva pater tzara, so too this woman sota is going to pater her tzara. That's the shita of Rav. Now, if I'd ask you right now, what is the opinion of not Rav? Our Mishnah doesn't list sota. Why tzara sota? Because we hold that the tzara of a sota is not going to be pater from yibum and chalitza. What do we hold by a sota herself? This is not clear. There's no real one place where it says what the halach of a sota is. That's why I mean that we're shown to discuss what the status of Rachel is. Is Rachel also pater min yibum and chalitza like a nerva, and it's just we don't extend it to Dina, or no? Is Rachel only usher in yibum because it says tuma, because we're going to treat her like an erva in that sense, but la'olam she's not mafki any yibum, and so then of course Dina has to at least do chalitza, could even be you could do yibum. That's a discussion in the Mishnah, but it's not really relevant for our Gemara. Moshe Rav Chizda asks a kasha. We have to sort of learn a Mishnah later on, which we're not going to. I'm going to mention the details of that Mishnah just briefly. It's talking about the second half of the Masechta is discussing all of the sugis of you have about a guna, like if you have a person whose husband travels and an Eid Echad or Eidim come in later and say, we saw him get into a car accident. So now she wants to go marry someone else, right? So let's say in this case over here, the case we're talking about is nus. It's a sota vadai, right? This is a mamish sota deraisa. What if you'd have a very similar case? So you'd have, we'll use the same Reuven and Shimon here. We'll just use it on the bottom, yeah? So you have Shimon married too in the same scenario. You have Dina, you have Rachel, and you have what happened is Shimon went off on a business trip, right? He went off on a business trip, and an Eid Echad or Eidim came and said that he died. So Rachel went beheter, married David. Is she allowed to marry David? Of course.
Guna.
Well, it's not an aguna. We have Eidim coming and saying,
Right, I mean, a guna, a kirubanan.
yeah. So in this scenario, you're either Eidim or you have an Eid Echad, whatever it is. So you have over here, Rachel is now allowed to marry David, right? Okay. Now, what happens if Shimon comes prancing into Bezdin a couple of weeks later? Okay, so he clearly didn't die. We trusted the Eid Echad, right? But we trusted the Eid Echad, but it turns out, not that we shouldn't have, but that he didn't know what he's talking about. He thought he saw what he saw, he didn't see what he saw, whatever it is. So it comes out now that Rachel is married to who? Shimon. Shimon's alive.
Yeah, but Rachel being with David.
Oh, let's leave that moment. Correct. That's exactly what the Gemara is attempting to establish over here. But the Bia it's not Mafkiya the Kiddushin. She's still Shimon's wife, not David's wife.
It only works
Once
towards
you have beer with
the-
another man, you can't marry her. You can't stay married.
I didn't ask you if she's allowed to stay. I'm saying, but she is still his wife.
This oinus.
No, but even so, okay, she was Mizana.
This is oinus.
That's not Mafkiya the Kiddushin.
That's nus.
They're still married.
Oinus.
He has to get divorced, right? Meaning, Rachel went ahead and married David. Kedas Moshe Yisrael under Rechuppah, biggest Rosh Yeshivas that were there, all based off the Eid Echad. Lemafreya, this was nothing. Meaning, yes, Lemafreya, we're going to make all of those be aser, but as long as they didn't have any kids, there's no
Good.
right. Now you might ask, what if she had a kid? Is the kid a mamzer? Fazikha, the kid's a mamzer. It's not a shayla. Why not? She had bio outside of marriage while she was an Eish. Yeah, so for sure, but that's not our sugi. We're not discussing it. So what over here is happening? Turns out Shimon is really alive. So Shimon's alive. So who's Rachel married to? Shimon. And now Shimon dies. And Reuven needs to figure out who to do even with. What is this a case of? It's not mamish a case of Sarasota, but it is sort of like the case of Sarasota. The only difference is we have Eidim on this nus. So we know that for sure Rachel is a Zaina and she's a Saita. So what's Dina? Dina's a Sarasota. But what is Dina here really effectively? Once we find out that Shimon's still alive, it came out that Rachel was with David. That makes Dina Sota. Now you might say, that's not the same thing.
Right.
This is Mamash, she did it on purpose.
Right.
this is only. And so says the Gemara like this. Since says the Gemara later on, Hakol Maidim. We'll see you later on. Hakol Maidim, Hachamim, Shimon, the Mishnah over there. Everyone agrees. The halacha is that Shimon has to divorce Rachel. You might ask yourself why. Me'ikar adin. Why should she have to divorce him? You'll say because she cheated on him, but she didn't. This is an oinus. She has every right to rely on this heter. So why? Right, without getting too much into the lumdus, but we all know that the Isser Labal is only when she's moired against the Baal. There was no Merida here. She did a bia, but the bia is not going to answer her on Shimon min HaTorah. The rabbis came along and said they gave her a knas. Why did they knas her? They knased her because she relied on an Eirechad. Meaning, you're allowed to rely on an Eirechad, and it's designed around the Aguna not being a Bitzar. But really, we want someone like this before she goes and quickly gets married. Go do your research. Go look in. You can check the records, whatever it is. So therefore, midarabanan, we said Rachel has to get divorced from Shimon.
Is that what we
Everyone agrees to that.
There's 2 Eidim left. There's no custody.
So I don't think so. I think with 2 Eidim, I think she has every head to rely on. It's a different halacha. So you later on in Pezai. So now, Rachel min HaTorah is completely allowed to marry David. Midarabanan, she's allowed to marry David. But we would want. Now we say she has to divorce Shimon. Really make her think she shouldn't have to. It's a knas. So now the machlokas between Chachamim and Shimon, Reb Shimon in the Mishnah, the Pezai, is the following: do we extend the knas to the Yavam? Meaning, now Shimon dies, right? Ruvain, Dina for sure he could do Yibam and Chalitza with nothing discussed, right? What about Rachel? Can Rachel do Yibam with Ruvain? Or do we say that no, even Rachel? The Chachamim say you can't do Yibam with Rachel. According to Shimon, no, you can do Yibam with Rachel. But regardless, the Tzara, everybody agrees you can do Yibam and Chalitza. Why? This is a Tzara Sota. Right. That's the Gemara's question. Right. Says the Gemara, 1 second. You're comparing this, where I said, the Raisa Sota, the Tzara Sota is going to be an Erva and Pater, her Tzara and Tzara, to this case, where to begin with, Dina is only a Tzara of a Sota de Rabbanan as a Knas, and you're going to tell me that since it says over here that everyone agrees there's a Yibam and Chalitza, that's a right Kenegda? Gemara says, yeah, I would have thought so. Why? Because I would have said, called the Tikkun the Rabbanan is Ka'ain der Raisa Tikkun. That's the explanation of the question. The answer is no. It's a Rabbanan. There's no kasha. Says let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Tzara Sota Asura. We read this to Maksiba Kerayis Maser Rav Chizda Rav Shimon Omer Bi Asa Yechlitzas May Echav Shal Rishon Peteres Tarasa. This is just a line of Rav Shimon that says that if Reuven is to do Yibam or Chalitza with Rachel or Dina, it patters the other one. Meaning the point is you can do Yibam and Chalitza with the other one, even Dina. Says the Gemara, such a kasha, Amal Charav, Amina Lachana Sota Derais about Amrli Sota Derabana. Right? Meaning that's the answer, not a kasha. Now, Udika Arila, Mike Arila. What was the Gemara thinking and asking this question? Gemara says, Nahamina Kasavar called the Tikkun Rabbanan came the Rais, it's taken therefore thought to ask. Kamash Mal Rav says there's a major distinction between the Rais and the Rabbanan. That is kasha number 1 on Sota. There's a second kasha. The second kasha comes from Sota, Suffolk. Until now, we've been using this word very liberally and calling this a Sota. But really, technically, it's really a tzaras ishtay shizim bevade with Aiden. But really a sota is a case where the husband says to his wife, I don't like Sean, stay away from Sean. I don't want to ever see you with Sean. And if I see you with Sean hanging out by his house and I see that I don't want you to do that. And Kachava, she went ahead and she was misyachid with Sean in front of Aiden. The Aiden didn't see the Maisabiyah. They only saw that she went in and she was in there for long enough to potentially have a Maisabiyah. Now she comes out. We have a cold matzav of the sota of Nesech the sota. Okay. What's the halacha? Says the Gemara.
What, before she drank?
Yeah, before she drank. Let's see, we'll see.
I mean, it's still married.
Still married, yeah. That's not a question. So say, Masa Ravashi. Nichnasa imoy l'seiser. Right? Have a Bryce. Bryce says, let's say Rachel, in our case, so instead of doing a Maises Nus Be'edim, it's a Yichud Be'edim. So she is a Sota. But we'll call her in our Gemara a Sota Suffolk, meaning a real Sota is a Sota Suffolk. Whereas this one is a Sota Vadai, meaning to say she's been Zinsa. So Nichnasa Ima L'Seiser. Let's say Rachel went inside Yichud with Sean. V'shahasa Ima Kidei Tuma, meaning Asura Besa. This is the regular case of a Sota. The halach is she's Asur on her husband. V'Asur Lechel B'Truma. And she's Asur to eat Truma. Why? Because again, if assuming her husband's a Kayan and she's married to a Kayan, she only has the head to eat Kayan, calls man, she's mutter to the husband. But the halach is a Sota is not allowed to have Truma. V'im Mace. And if Shimon dies, chalates v'lo misyabemes. Meaning what? Meaning, Rachel has a din of chalitza, which means there's a zika. And if there's a zika there, obviously that means Dina is also going to need a chalitza or yibam. And the kasha is, well, if it's true for a sota suffix, it should be the same thing for a regular sota vadai. Immediately the question is going to be, 1 second. I told you in a case where it's Adam. That's when this is an erva, and that's a saras erva. You bring me a case of a suffix, says the Gemara, Amalach Harav, Amino lach ana sota vadai va'amrit li'at sota suffix. It's good taina, where it says, Umayshna sota, so the Gemara is explaining its question. What was the whole reason why Rav said that Rachel is an erva? Because it says Tuma ksiba kerais. So for the Gemara, Umayshna sota vadai mishum ksiba Tuma. So they both have Tuma written by it. So if Nistar Rav Hinitma by the Vada is going to say, according to you, Rav, that the Sotas Vada is an erva, well, then shouldn't the Sota Safik be an erva? Because there's also a pasuk that says Tuma by her. Now, where do you see that the Torah says the word Tuma by a Sota Safik? On the following brayso, the Tanya. We're going to see Machlekes. Rabbi Yossi ben Kipar Oimer Mishum Rebbe Lazar Hamaser Rushasu Min Hanesu. And we know the halacha is Reuven, if he's married to a woman and then divorces her, and she goes and is with some other man, and then takes her back. He's being over on a love of Masig Rushasai, meaning as long as she didn't marry someone else, he's allowed to have her back, but not the other way around. So we're going to see a machlekes whether that's true only if she went off and married someone else, min on a suin, or what about if the second marriage was only a kiddushin and then got divorced? Says the Gemara. Amir Rav Elazar Masig Rushasai min on a suin, asura min ha'arusin muteris. So the shita of Rav Yossi ben Kipar is that it's only when that middle marriage, let's say with David, was an Isuin. If it was an Isuin, then now to get remarried back to her first husband, that's going to be a Masig Rishasai. Why? Mishum Shenemar, the pasuk says, Achrei Asher Hutama, because since in between she became Hutama, which we'll understand to mean Bia, that's going by Masig Rishasai. That's the opinion of Rav Yossi ben Kipar. What's that?
And not what? And
not Kiddushin.
Kiddushin is nothing.
What do you mean?
You didn't assert to your husband.
Something to do. Talking about Masig Rishasai. It's not a issue. No.
Masig Rishasai.
Yeah. Reuven is married to Rachel.
Okay.
Divorces Rachel. Rachel goes and marries David.
That's bad.
Kiddushin.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes Kiddushin.
Only Kiddushin.
Only Kiddushin.
No Bia.
No Bia.
So what's the problem?
You know, well, that's a machlekes ben Rav Yossi ben Kipar and the Rabban.
You're trying to tell me that just the act of Eris in itself makes her
Makes her a palamasa. Masig Rishasai isn't because of Ashes Ish.
I thought it was because of Bia.
No. I mean, yeah, that's a machlekes. But if you make issues with another woman, meaning, here, let's say the lump is like this. Masig Rishasai, as long as she hasn't married anyone in between, we can view the second marriage like a continuation of the first marriage. But the moment he breaks it up with marriage for another woman, well, now you have a problem. The Torah says you can't remarry your grusha, but only if she's married to someone in between, not necessarily because of bia. Meaning, we'll see in a moment that's itself a machlekes. That's this machlekes. We're literally reading the brayso where the question, what you're mentioning, is a totally different machlekes. Says the Gemara, the Tanya, Rabbi Yossi ben Kipar Omer Mishum Rebbe Lazar, Amatzig Rishasai min hanesuin. Reuven takes back Rachel after she marries David, and a married meaning lives with him. Asura, that's going to be a problem. However, I mean, Ha'erisin, if all David did was made Kiddushin and then divorced her, meaning they never lived together, then Muteris, meaning what's the distinction between Erisin and Kiddushin Bia, right? So Mishum Shenemar, because the pasuk says, By Masig Rishasai, Achrei Asher Hutama. Hutama means Bia. Tuma means Bia. But what's this pasuk, Achrei Asher Hutama, talking about? Masig Rishasai. So for our perspective, we don't really care so much for this opinion of Rabbi Yossi ben Kipar. We're interested more in the Chachamim for a second. The Chachamim Oimrim, no. Achazu v'achazu. They're both going to be a problem. Meaning, the shita of Rabbi Yossi ben Kipar is the way you thought, that it's only when there's an nesuin that happens that now it's usher. Zokta Chachamim, even if all you have is a kiddushin. Why? Because he has the pasuk of Achrei Asher Hutama to be talking about something else, right? He says it's going on both on kiddushin and on erisin and on nesuin. So then, what is the pasuk of Achrei Asher Hutama talking about? Alamani Mekayim Achrei Hutama. What's that pasuk talking about? A completely unrelated point. The Rabbos Sota Shinistera. And what's the question? You see from the Chachamim that there is a pasuk of Tuma by even a Sota Safik. What's a Sota Shinistera? Sota Shinistera is a Sota Safik. That's not where we know for sure she had Bia. It's only talking about where she did yichud. That's the case of sota safek. So now we have the pasuk of achri hu tama tuma ksiv ba ke'arayos. So if Rav's whole cheshbon was that tuma is by a sotas vadai, and that's why she's considered an erva, so the tzara is erva. So then, so too, the tuma that's written by a sota safek should make her an erva, and the tzara should be not. And yet, at the same time, the Bryce is very clear that a sota safek is choletzes for lomis yabemis. Why is there a chalitza? There should be a hafka entirely from the kiddush, from the yibam, and the tzara should for sure not have a din yibam and chalitza. So the Gemara answers, no, my nistara doesn't mean nistara mamish, it means nistara nivola. In this case, it happens to be that what the chachamim were saying was referring to sotas vadai also. Why then use that lashon? It was a lashon naki, lishna malian. It was speaking in an oifen of not speaking about bia. All right. Okay. So what's the answer? So what was the question? The question is, right, you said sotas vadai. What about sotas safek? Also has tuma. He answers no. The chachamim, when they're talking about sotas, the sota that has a tuma wasn't sotas safek. It's also sotas vadai, which would mean that there are now two isurim for a man with his sotas vadai. Meaning a man's wife cheats on him, he can't be with his wife for two reasons now. Reason number one is an Isser Ba'alma. Isser number two is a lav. What's the lav? Nivola tuma behedik sibba. What do you need? Why did you? Meaning the way we're explaining it now is the pasuk of Achrei Asher Hutama is talking about a sotas vadai as well. So I already have tuma, like we said earlier, v'nistra v'hinitma Rashi quoted. So why do you need a separate pasuk? Says you're right. Lamekom alo b'lav. Add upon it not just a regular Isser, but an Isser Lav, meaning that now there's a Chiyuv Malchus. So until now, if all you had was an Isser of Hinitma, if a husband went and slept with his wife after he found out with Adam that she cheated, he's not Chayiv Malchus. Now he's Chayiv Malchus. That is, and La'olam, I don't actually have a pasuk of Tumah by Sota Safek. So therefore, Rav will say, don't ask me from Sota Safek that the Tzara is going to need Yibam and that the Sota Safek is going to need Yibam and Chalitza, because I'm always talking about Sota Zvade where the Torah says Tumah Karayis. For the Gemara of Rabbi Yossi ben Kippar, who we just explained, who does not learn the pasuk of Achrei Asher Hutama to be talking about Sota at all. He says it's all going in Master Gushasai. So it comes out that Lav is Sota Leslie. He holds there's no Lav when a man is with his wife, who was Zinsa. Ve'afilu is Nainami, Waitaima Havaya V'ishus Ksiv. He says because when you look at the pasuk of Machzir Grushasai, the pasuk by Master Gushasai, by Isha Shazinsa requires that she went off and married someone else and had Ishus with him. Not just so according to him, the only way you can have a lav by a woman that cheated is if she goes and marries someone else. Meaning to him, the whole entire concept is only Master Gushasai and only Benesuin, and therefore sleeping with another man, although the husband will have an Isser and must divorce, it's not going to be Chayv Malchus. That's the Shinyan Rabbi Yossi ben Kippar. But what comes out from here is this machlekes about the pasuk, whether it's talking about Master Gushasai or not, is either according to Rabbi Yossi ben Kippar talking about Master Gushasai, or according to the Chachamim talking about Sotas Vadai in order to teach us that there's a Chiyuv Lav to be with your wife who is Mizana. But La'olam, there's no pasuk by Sotas Safek of Tumah, so therefore the Tzaras Sota would only be Tzaras Sotas Vadai, not Tzaras Sotas Safek.
Wow.
Okay. Boy Mine reviewed the Rav Sheshes, a new halacha. The last halacha of the daf, which really continues the daf Yud Beis. But for our sake, we're just going to make a haskalah in it a little bit, and then we'll see. We're talking now about a case of Machzir Gushasai.
Sorry, just 1 second. When are you guys done? 10 minutes,
5
20
minutes.
minutes?
5 minutes.
No, what's the one? What?
No, the BM is 20 minutes?
Well, it's
What?
a tough case. I mean, Machzir Gushasai.
Well,
What do you need? What's up?
Nothing.
I don't want to mistake. Just 20 minutes?
Yeah, I know. Boy Mine reviewed the Rav Sheshes. Rabbi Yehuda asked from Rav Sheshes the following halacha. Now, it's nice that we just learned about Rav Yossi ben Kippar and the Chachamim, because it comes out, according to Rav Yossi ben Kippar and the Chachamim, there's a machlekes exactly under what circumstances Machzir Gushasai is a problem. So, right, we have Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi is going to say, this Machzir Gushasai is only min hanisuin. Aser, Erison, Mutter, the Chachamim, all Aser. Yeah? Okay. This is Machzir Gushasai. Says the Gemara, Boy Mine Rav Sheshes, Machzir Gushasai Mishanises Umeis Sarasamahu. Cases, Reuven, Shimon. Shimon is married. It's 2 ladies, Rachel and Dinah. Rachel, he divorces her. She goes off and marries David. Yeah? And then remarries her.
Without her getting a get?
No, meaning Shimon gave her a get. Rachel got married to David.
David gave a get?
It doesn't matter, dies, whatever.
Nice.
Gives a get, doesn't give either get or misa, meaning
What's the
ends
problem?
this marriage properly.
What's the problem?
Well, depends.
It's not a kohen.
Yeah, but this is Master Gushasai. First, he was married to Rachel.
Yeah, I'll marry a woman after she marries.
Once a man, it's possible in the Torah. Once you're married to a woman, you divorce her, you're not allowed to remarry her if she marries someone in between. Master Gushasai.
As long as she doesn't marry someone between. Okay.
David. If you marries David, I got a problem. Rav Yossi says that's only true
Even
if
he gets
David
engaged.
Nisur Nasurim.
only in his own, but meaning if all he did was made Kiddushin, then it's still okay. The Chachamim hold no. Whether it's Erison, whether it's Nisuin, doesn't make a
That's a lot of
difference.
Misa. That's what we said today.
Yeah, Master Gushasai is
She doesn't
also.
get married with anyone else in the
Yeah. I don't know what Talach is Lamais. I'm pretty sure it's
It's a big deal.
it's a big
Mitzvah.
it's actually a big mitzvah to be Master Gushasai
Right.
as long as she has married someone in between. Once she marries,
Marries someone in between, so
then it's us.
even if he dies.
Yeah. Now the question is, what's the halacha of Dina in Yibum if Shimon dies? He's got Dina and Rachel. Rachel is also to Shimon as his Master Gushasai. Because right, she went and married David and then she came back. So what's the story with Dina? This is a tsaras, Master Gushasai. Rachel is a Master Gushasai, and Dina is a tzara of a Master
Can I ask a
Gushasai.
general question? Why can't we I see
Yeah,
it
sure,
as
go
a
ahead.
theme. Why don't we just say it's someone that's puzzle? I don't know this is a child, not the child. Whoever's puzzles out of the story. Now we have Reuven and the Torah. I mean, why did Torah see such a big, 15 Torahs to say like we knocked this whole thing off?
Without getting
What's
without
the
getting into the cheshbon of the Chachamim versus Rebbe, which was in the earlier Gemaras, each one has a different drush where they get this from, but they both understand clearly that the Torah is mechadash, that the tsaros of a woman, erva or not, it's the way I always understood it, the way this has been explained to me is that it's the brother's responsibility to build the bias of his brother. And the bias is defined by all of the ladies inside that bias, not any one of those individual ladies. So Dina and Rachel, and let's say he had 5 other tzaras, doesn't make a difference. The way it works is that it's Reuven's responsibility to build Beis Shimon. Beis Shimon is made up of all these ladies. That means if any part of Beis Shimon is pater from Yibum, the bias is pater from Yibum. That's the understanding of what a tzara being pater is.
Base Yevamos Potter.
Once the bias of Shimon contains within it someone that is completely mufka from the parasha of Yibum and Chalitza, let's say she's an erva, or a tzaras erva, or according to Rav, Sota, or a Matzah Gushasai, if the Torah holds Me'ikar Hadin, one of those women, then that means Beis Shimon wasn't spoken to about Yibum and Chalitza. That's sort of like the big picture, 30,000 foot view of the way I see it. Now, I think the most difficult part of learning Masech Yevamos is how that idea gets knocked around so often, because we're going to find cases where you'll have someone like an islandess. We'll get to that in Mitzvah Shem tomorrow. An islandess is a woman who is completely mufka from the parsha of Yibum, and yet the tzara of an islandess has a din chalitza. Why?
But that's an easy differentiation. One's a psul, it's
Okay, so he's a lamb, then you're already making cheshbonis. But I'm saying just on a big balabatish level, just to make the cheshbon of, well, the way I said it, if someone is in the house. It's a good question, though. And that question, by the way, will come up again and again and again, because we're going to constantly have to redefine how are we explaining what exactly is going on when we say this woman is pater from the Yibum, what it does to the rest of the people. And then also, just to take it one step further, is how does that affect the other brothers as well? Meaning, is it also, that's another question. Either way, this is the question. A person, Reuven, divorced his wife, Rachel. Rachel went ahead, Mishanises, and David married David, and they lived together a couple of years. David dies, or David divorces Rachel, and Rachel's like, you know what, I really miss Reuven, I want to remarry him. Reuven remarries her. Shouldn't have done that. Everyone agrees that that's usher. Chachamim and Rabbi Yossi, Hakol Modim, that's a problem. Umeis. So Rasa Mahu. What's the halacha of the tzara? So the Gemara says the following shaila. Aliba, and we're going to see 2 lashonos in the Gemara. Let's first deal with the Lishna Kama. Aliba the Rabbi Yossi ben Kipar loyti bayalach. According to Rabbi Yossi ben Kipar, who says that bin had a spin it's also, but bin ha'eris in its mutter. There's no shaila here. Why? Kivan the Rabbi Yossi ben Kipar tuma B'machzir grushasa hu dichsiva. Since we know from the previous sugya that Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur learned the words asher. What's the lashon again? Achrei asher hutama is talking about machzir grushasa. Therefore, the reason why David having an isuin is because of tuma, the bia. That's how he understands sarasa kimosa. So then, what is Dina vis-a-vis Ruvain? Meaning Rachel is tuma. So tuma is erva. Meaning we're making the following assumption: any place you could find the word tuma, we're going to call that an erva.
And Sarah's out.
Right. So since the tzara is a tzara of an erva, then the tzara is out. So the whole question over here of a tzara samahu, Ruvain with Dina, would not start according to Rabbi Yossi, according to Lashon. Why? Because it's a tzaras. Now it's not a real erva, but it's a tzara of an erva. Tzaras machzir grushasa is like a tzaras erva because the word machzir grushasa, the psukim by machzir grushasa contains toma, but that's true only according to Rabbi Yossi.
What about
The Chachamim said that since the Isser is Bain Nisuin and Erison of machzir grushasa, so it has nothing to do with having bia. And therefore, he read the psukim of Achrei Asher Hutama. It was about Sota. He was talking about Sota. Remember that it was in order to add upon the Isser of Sota's vow, they have a lav of Kares. Right? So says the Gemara like this. He says like, Kivnam Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur Tumim Machzir Grushasa Diksiva Tzarasa K'maisa. About that's going to be us, so there's no discussion. For sure, the question is, V'i Mishum Dichsiv Ba. And now the Gemara just parenthetically explains, if you look inside the psukim by Machzir Grushasa, it actually says the words Tayevahi. To be machzir yagrusha, it's a tayeva, which implies there's a diak. He tayeva, ve'ain blank tayeva. Something else is not a tayeva. The question is what? And maybe you'll argue, maybe the tzara is considered a tayeva. And you might therefore say that the tzara is not a tayeva, meaning that even according to Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur, the tzara is going to have a din yibam and chalitza, despite the fact that Rachel won't because she's a machzir grushasa. He says no. He tayeva ve'ain boneha toivin. All it means to say is in the case where Shimon took back Rachel, and let's say now he goes and has a kid from her, nothing to do with the case of Yibam, do we say that kid's a chalal or not? A chalala. The chiddush is only Rachel is his own, but her child is not a chalala. So therefore, Tzara is going to be us. So says the Gemara in the Lishna Kama, Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur, there's nothing to talk about. Tzara is us. Nothing to talk about, because she's a tamei, therefore that's a Tzara's tamei. Yeah? According to this first lashon of the Gemara, the question is only starting with the Rabbanan, because since they don't have the pasuk of Tumah by Rachel, because machzir grushasa according to them goes even when it's from an erison, right? Therefore, this isn't like an error. So then, therefore, Rachel's din. What's her din? Do we say ein mikra yotzi midei pshuto? In which case, remember, because they read the pasuk of Achrei Asher Hutama to be talking about Sarasota. Yeah. Sorry, about Sota. But it was a pasuk contained in the parsha of Machzir Grushasa. So do we say that although in halacha they're utilizing the pasuk for a different area, but since we say Ein Mikra Yotzim Midei Pshuto, that the word Tuma is now stated by a Machzir Grushasa as well on some level, maybe we'll say that Torah is also a problem. Odilma Kivin Iyaker that no, once we say that the pasuk of Tumah is talking about a sota, it's not talking about Machzir Grushasa at all, and therefore Yibam with the Tzara is going to be required. Whoa. Or Chalitza. That's the suffix of the Gemara. So really, effectively, according to the Lishna Kama, the question is, in the Lishna Kama, the kasha, the suffix is in the Chachamim, and what's the suffix? The suffix is, do we say Yotze Midei Shuto? In which case then, meaning Ein, Yotze Midei Pshuto, in which case then it's Petura. The Tzara is Petura. Right? Or do we say that no? Iyaker.
Okay.
Once it's talking about Sota, it's not talking about Machzir Grushasa, in which case then the Tzara is not a Tzara of a Tameh, she's a regular Tzara, in which case then she's Mechu Yeves.
Ikra means that she's out of the story.
Yeah, she's been taken out. Yeah. Meaning of Machzir Grushasa, not of Yibam. Of Machzir Grushasa, meaning the word Tumah was never said by Machzir Grushasa. Therefore, this woman is not a Tumah. That's not a Tzara of a Tumah.
Even though it's in that parish.
Even though it's in the parish.
Okay, stop for a second. Okay, breathe.
Yeah.
In yeshiva, we spent a week on this. Every one of these things.
Much more than a week.
Tzara
Tzara Sota, Tzara Silenes, Tzara Mamenes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having nightmares now thinking about it.
Yeah, but it's really on a basic level. It's not that difficult.
But that's just to get the this half a daf was for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was preparing it on Purim. So yeah, yeah,
How
not
do you
fun.
do that?
Yeah, not easy, not easy. I didn't drink as much yesterday by the Suda.
Wow.
I was moister nefesh not to get so completely plastered at the Suda, so that last night I could.
So you prepared last night?
Yeah, a
After the
little bit after I stopped doing Shalach Manas, but most of last night.
I said, you remember this from the show?
I remember the complications. I don't I wouldn't have been able to just open it up and start reading it.
Impossible.
Yeah,
Gemara.
it's a hard Gemara. Hard Gemara.
Today's daf is impossible.
It's a tough daf. There's actually a 4 or 5 light daf between you.
Because
10 seconds.
we know this stuff.
I don't know.
You send it.
Okay, I know. It's an old one. But we're in the middle of the Gemara. It's sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
that's the first lashon. Lishna kama is a suffix. There's lishna basha.
That was a suffix that's right there?
Yeah, I mean, ask the Gemara. Tsaras, Masu Gushas Mahu. Do we say in the Chachamim? Meaning again, according to Rabbi Yossi, it's not a suffix. According to Rabbi Yossi, in the Lishna Kama, Rabbi Yossi is for sure going to say that it's Petura because it's a Tsaras Erva. Because Tuma is Nechta by Masu Gushasai. So that woman is a Tzara of a Masu Gushasai who the Torah says is Tameh. Meaning, and Tuma Keraya is like an Erva. That's for sure the case. Lishna Basra is going to be the exact opposite. We're going to say the suffix is in who? In Rabbi Yossi. How can you have a suffix in Rabbi Yossi? We just said 2 seconds ago that the word is Tuma there. So we'll say, what did we say? We said it, the Gemara gave some foreshadowing. It said, but the Torah also says, maybe we'll say, he Tayeva ve'ein tzarasa Tayeva.
Even though it says Tuma?
Even though it says Tuma, meaning she's Tuma, but maybe she's not. That's the Chiddush.
Wow.
So, Lishna Basra, you get the Amri like this. Aliba the Rabbanon loy tibayalach. Like the Rabbanon.
Yeah.
Right, like the Rabbanon, everyone's going to agree. Kiva de Isakir is Yakir, because the Torah is not talking about Chlal in that parsha. It's talking about Sota. And therefore, for sure, Master Gushasa is not a Toma. And therefore, Dina is for sure going to be Mechuyev. Mechuyeves in something. Chalitza Yibam. Kitibayalach aliba de Rabbi Yossi ben Kippar. Mai. Which would be a reason to say that it's a tzaras erva. However, miyat rachmana, there's a miyat. The Torah says hitayeva vein tzaras tayeva. Odilmano hitayeva vein banat tayeva. Meaning, go for the thing that we said earlier, which was a davar pasha. We're now saying it's a suffix. How do you darshan? So therefore, what's the suffix? Do we say he toeva tzara not? Or he toeva and banaha not. If you say Sarah is not, so then if she's not a toeva, then that means she's mechuyev. Whereas if there's no exclusion of a tzara, then just like she's a toeva, the tzara is a toeva, in which case then she's petura.
That's the suffix.
That's the suffix in the Lishna Basra. So Lishna Basra, the suffix is a suffix in Rabbi Yossi, and Lishna Kam is a suffix in the Chachamim, but it's Pashut, the flip side of that, right? So we start from the Lishna Kama, that it's in Rabbi Yossi Pashut that she's Pater, all the way to Lishna Basra where it's a question. And in the Lishna Kama, we start with the Chachamim, in the Lishna Basra, we start with that with the Rabbanah for sure, it's Mechuyev. The Lishna Kama, it's the suffix is, well, maybe no, since in the end of the day, Ein Rikra Yotzi Midei Pshuto, maybe even that's going to be a Patur. So the Gemara says, Tanisua. We have a brisa, and we're going to start this discussion today. It's going to take us into tomorrow, so we'll pause sort of somewhere in these middle lines over here, and we'll pick up from tomorrow. Well, today's a tough day. It's a tough day. Today's a tough, and it's. I'm also explaining it really slowly. Normally, I would go a little faster.
Is our address 1019 Broadway?
No.
What is it?
1034. Or you say 1019? 1019 was the old place.
Continue.
Now we did. Oh, we didn't finish.
Almost done.
When we're done, can you tell us something about Purim or Purim Torah?
You got it, 100%. I'll ask you a question you could think about while we're finishing it over here. Why is it that on all of the other Yomim Tovim, if let's say you live in Israel and you go to America, or you live in America and you go to Israel, the halacha is that you keep the Yom Tov of where you live, not of where you are. So if let's say you're an American,
But your home is in Israel.
Visiting in Eretz Yisrael, you still got to keep 2 days. And if you live in Eretz Yisrael and you come to America, you only make her have to keep one day, but by permit it's not the same. If you wake up in
Wherever
Yerushalayim,
you are.
and on Yerushalayim on the 15th, you keep Purim. What if you're in Bnei Brak on the 14th, you keep Purim? Meaning it's wherever you are. Don't answer the question. I want you to think about
That's a
it.
holy question.
We're going to discuss it after.
That's a holy
I'm
question.
going to ask you when we're done. I'm going to ask you one. Now let's focus on Yevamos.
And you're gonna speak today by Tana?
Of course.
So maybe I'll say this idea. So if you guys don't mind if I repeat it.
You have to come at least half hour, 45 minutes. I want to start making Shabbos of matzah.
I'll try. So I'm like Tanisua.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's gonna be like.
Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara. So we have over here stuff. We have two different listeners. Says the Gemara. I'm late Tanisua. I can learn from the following brisa. What does the brisa say? So you have to have some context. It's a Mishnah later on. It's a Mishnah on Daf Mem Daled and Amud Aleph, or Brisa on Daf Mem Daled. The Brisa says the following: you have Reuven and Shimon. Shimon dies, leaves over two ladies. The halacha is that you could do yibum with one, the other one's pater. You could do yibum with the other, you could do the other one's pater. Regular, normal, vanilla case of yibum with chalitza, nice and easy. However, it says over there, let's say when Shimon dies, one of these women is kosher and one of these women is his puzzle. It says, if he was planning on doing chalitza, chalitz lipsula. And if he's going to do yibum, miyabim l'ksheira. So it says the Gemara, what does it mean here, ksheira and psula? Meaning this brisa that says if you're going to do yibum with the kosher, and if you're going to do chalitza, do yibum with the puzzle. My ksheira umay
Do
psula.
yibum with the kosher.
Do yibum with the kosher, and do chalitza with the puzzle. Meaning you have complete choice to do whatever you want. There's no right.
It's obvious. You do even do it when you're allowed to, whatever it means.
You're assuming puzzle means usher.
I don't know what it
So
means.
it's the Gemara, my kosher, my puzzle, my ksheira, my psula. Ilema ksheira, it means ksheira la'alma psula, psula la'alma, meaning if what it means here is that of the two ladies, one of them is, let's say, a grusha or a chalutza, so that what, meaning it's puzzle, it means to kayan, and you're not a kayan, meaning it just means psula la'alma, then who cares? Said Gemara. Even the day chazia, I'm a Yisrael. I could care less if she's a grusha or not.
Why can't I do even?
So then my nafka mina. Why do you got to tell me which one I should do? I can marry this one or I can marry that one. I can do chalitza with it. I can marry it. Doesn't make a difference. Elalav kshera kshera lei psula psula lei. It means what? It means like the rabbi was saying. Psula means I'm not allowed to be with her, right? And kosher means I am. In which case, then what is it saying? It's saying kosher. You should be. So what you just said is actually true, and therefore they say because of that, it clearly can't be talking about that I'm a Kohen, and this is talking about a grusha or something like that, because that's obvious. I don't need a Mishnah to tell me that I should do yibum with the one I'm allowed to be with, and I should do chalitza with the one that I'm not about. So it says the Gemara, Elamai, what are we going to say? Umayniu, who is the kosher and puzzle here? Most people say it's talking about this case exactly of Machzor Grushasei. Our case of Reuven and Shimon.
Machzor Grushasei considered a psula.
Yeah. Well, in this case, we're going to say
I thought it's an extra mitzvah.
that's something else. That's only if she didn't marry someone in between. So let's say she went ahead and married David in between. Shimon remarries her. Rachel and Dina are falling to Reuven. Rachel is the puzzle, and Dina is the kosher. Says the Mishnah. Rachel do yibum. Sorry, do yibum with Dina, and do chalitza with Rachel.
If brother was married to someone, that divorced the other brother can marry her?
Yeah, I know. Because Shimon's got two wives. He dies, no kids. Reuven's got to eat then
If I
yibum.
have a brother and I pass away,
Chas v'shalom, yeah. He does
my
yibum.
brother can marry her?
Has to. If you have no, not you.
Not pass away. If I
You have
divorce
kids.
her, if I divorce a
No,
woman,
that's a different story.
but that's the case you just said.
No.
Then if a brother passes,
He divorces her and then he remarries her. So now,
Yeah.
now they're remarried, and
that
now he
means that
dies.
she married his brother.
No. David is a random guy on the.
Then how's there a mitzvah of yibum with a random person?
No. Start again. Shimon is married to Rachel.
Divorces her.
Divorces her. She goes and runs and marries David. Doesn't like him either. She comes back and remarries Shimon. So now Shimon is married to a woman named Rachel. Shimon dies. Reuven has to do even with his wife.
Right.
Regular normal case.
Right.
Difference is that to Shimon she was not allowed to be. That's why.
Because there's Machzor Grushasei, if she got married with someone else in between, not allowed to remarry her anymore. And he remarried her against Chazal.
And that marriage catches,
Yeah, of course.
even though she wasn't allowed to marry him. And
Yes. Yeah. No different than if a Kohen marries a woman who's divorced. He's not allowed to, but if he does, it takes. It's
Which
called-
is a kid that you're right. Usually when it's usher, the bia doesn't do anything, the kiddush doesn't do anything. These
That's the
cases,
chiluk
for some
between
reason-
kares and a laf. Right? Okay. So it says the Gemara, "Umayni, what does it mean in this Mishnah, this brisa later on, where it says that you should do yibum with the one who's kosher and chalitza with the one who's pasul? We're saying now, maybe say it's talking about this case of Machzor Grushasei, exactly the case we've been discussing. And what we mean to say is that Reuven should do yibum with Dina if that's who he wants to be with, and if he wants to do chalitza, he should do chalitza with Rachel. Ask the Gemara, "V'ktani v'im hoy miyabim miyabim l'ksheira." What's the question? Why can he do Yibum with Dina? Dina is a tzaras mashasai. Let this be what? Meaning this brisa l'chayra can answer the shaila of whether a tzaras masug shasai has a din Yibum. So which lishna does this reflect? So Rabbi Yossi says it's Ptura Tzaras Erva, so this would clearly be a kasha. So it clearly can't be Rabbi Yossi. It could be the Chachamim, and let us be patient with the Shaila and say that it's clearly Iyakir. Because she's Mechuyavis and Yibum.
Right.
Because if it would be like this first Sad, she'd be Ptura. What do you mean you could do Yibum with the kasher? The kasher here means Dina. Why can he do Yibum with her? She should L'chari be Ptura. Meaning L'chari, you could have said it also over here. Meaning clearly you could just say the price is in the Rabbanan and it's not being pushed to Shaila and all. Yes, the Gemara Rishon pointed out and they have answers for why they don't want to do it. Says the Gemara, so you have a kasha, meaning let's be pushed to Shaila over here. Lo oilam kshera la alma psula la alma. Lo oilam, we are talking about a case where he's a Yisrael and the woman Rachel is, let's say, a grusha and Dina is not. So why does it matter to me if Rachel's a grusha and Dina is not, if I'm not a kayan? Says the Gemara, you had said, what do I care that she's a grusha if I'm Yisrael? It's Mishum de Rav Yosef. It's because of the following statement of Rav Yosef. What did Rav Yosef say? The Rav Yosef, Kan Shana Rebbe. Rebbe had a famous statement, and Rav Yosef's opinion is that famous statement of Rebbe was applied to exactly this case. What's the statement? Lo yishpach adam meboro. A person shouldn't spill out the water from his well if other people need the water. Meaning to say, right now, from a Cohen's perspective, a Cohen can marry Dina because she's not a grusha. And Rachel is, so a Cohen can't marry Rachel, but he could marry Dina. If Reuven does chalitza with Dina, what happens to Dina? Now she can't be with a Cohen.
Take her out of the pool.
So just because you don't want to drink the water, why are you going to make the water problematic for someone else? So that's the chiddush of the Mishnah. Start it again. Remember, the question of the Gemara was Chesed.
We're
Yes.
talking about Kohen here.
We're looking out for the
He's
Kohen.
not a Kohen. He's a Yisrael.
And we said that.
And we're saying that she's a grusha and she's not. And the Gemara had said, who cares? He's a Yisrael. The fact that she's a chalutza or a grusha doesn't make a difference. In the end of the day, he's allowed to marry any one of them.
Yeah.
You're right. But what it's saying is if he's anyways planning on doing Yibum, he should do Yibum with Dina. Why? Okay, because he should do it with Dina. But why? Because Rachel is a problem. She's a master grusha, right? So he should do it. Let's say, yeah. But if he's going to do chalitza, which one should he do chalitza with? Says Rebbe, he should do chalitza with who? Rachel. She's already a problem with a kayan. And the way he expresses it is if Reuben doesn't want to drink the water, why should he make the kayan not be able to drink the water? Why add more women to the world who can't marry a kayan? And lo yishbach adam meiboro v'achem tzricha. If other need people to drink, don't spill out your water. Meaning to say, don't turn a perfectly healthy, kosher woman to a Kohen into someone who can't marry a Kohen, which is what he would do if he made a chalutza. But lo'olam, you have no raya. We're actually not talking about a case of. What's that? Of course, yeah, brothers. Yeah. We'll hold here.
So what are we trying to answer tomorrow when we get here?
We're gonna be discussing Tzara of Machzor Rishon in these two different opinions.
Can I ask on Yibum?
1 second.
Yeah.
Should we have this